Now Fitler. Puts on the step, goes right through, puts on the step again. Oh, go Freddie. That was magnificent stuff. Well, they shall not really them. Marshall skips away, Marshall's still going. Mullins opens up again. Oh, look at him go. He beats O'Davis on the outside.
Hello and welcome, Voluntary Tacklers. Back to the Voluntary Tackle podcast for another season. The only podcast willing to take donations from the Canberra blockade of anti-vaxxers. You know, when you're making zero revenue, it's amazing how quickly you can sell out your morals. It's an interesting pastiche of people down there. You know, some of them are just against mandates, some against the vaccine, but the most interesting cohort amongst them for me are the ones that actually don't believe in viruses. I mean, that's a tough sell, you know, because it does make me wonder what they think everyone's dying of. But look, we've started off on a bleak note, and as you know, if you are part of our core fandom, you know, we tend to start off on fairly dark tropes from the very beginning here, which is why I'm going to spend the next 25 minutes talking about the post-career of Quentin Pongia. I'm not going to, God rest his soul. As you can hear, just me, I am solo. We were due to record our comeback session with the great Media Watch Mario, but unfortunately, there was a bit of a scheduling conflict, and Mario informed me yesterday that he actually has a first aid course over the top of this session. And I said, no problems, mate, you go right ahead. Goodness knows you need to breathe some life into Marty Tapau's go forward. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to fire up the mics, have a bit of a chat with you, say g'day for 2022. It's been too long since we've chatted. I know this is only a one-way medium, but in my heart and in my head, I feel like I hear you guys back. That's what my shrink tells me. So, yeah, no, very, very happy to be online again. And if you're hearing any background noises and weird things, it's because I'm actually recording this on my balcony because my baby is asleep and I'm petrified to wake him because occasionally if you wake him up, just out of spite, he never goes back to sleep, I've discovered, which is a terrible trait. I'm trying to beat that out of him. No, I do not hit my kid. Please do not call up docs. So, yeah, I'm here on the balcony. So if you hear any background noises like cranes or people walking by or bats or just a sound of a person screaming from under the stairs, I promise you it's all law-abiding and legitimate. But it's pretty exciting. My first bit of footy I watched in a little while, obviously, was the All-Stars match, which I thought was a really good standard. Loved it. And I've got to say this, you know, a lot of other podcasts will talk about the game itself and the team sheets. You know, the strategy, the score, the tries, the highlights. We're not interested in any of that here at the Voluntary Tackle because, for me, it's all about the Andrew Fifita story. I've been one of his biggest critics, pretty vocal over the years because he's had some pretty inconsistent form and he's done some questionable things on and off the field, but I thought he was pretty hard done by last year. I remember thinking at the beginning of the season, this guy has really fined down. He'd lost a lot of kilos for the first time in many, many seasons. It appeared he actually trained and tried to move about. Many coaches in previous seasons had tried to get that through to Andrew and say, look, mate, movement will mean you don't have that same kind of jelly-looking gut that overhangs your pelvis, and ultimately that's going to improve your performance. But, yeah, it seems like the penny finally dropped for Andrew and he actually fined down and then he never got a run. Sort of just played in reserve grade for the most part. So I felt a little bit sorry for him. So to actually see him in that All-Stars game was actually quite a treat, and I actually thought he played quite well. Again, he looked pretty trim. He's obviously been keeping up the regimen. I can only assume that he's just wolfing down the Adam McDougall man shake or the lady shake. And, you know, Mad Dog is not a dumb man, and he realises, I'm not going to go half the market. I'm going to need to go the lady shake. I was looking at the back of the ingredients the other day because my dad bought some because it's his subtle way of saying you're getting fat, I think. There's that background noise I was talking about. I promise they're not coming from me. But yeah, I looked at the back of the ingredients. Checks against most of the vitamins, vitamin A, B, C, D, a lot of vitamin K, a lot of bone broth, reused fetuses. I don't know if That should necessarily be something you chuck in a blender. But well done, Mad Dog. I hear you've just signed some multi-billion-dollar agreement in the US to distribute. So, they've got a pretty watered-down FDA there. You can get away with anything. So good luck with your business model. And I'm sure it'll be just as scrupulous as your blood tests were during your career. I've really gone off track here. The other guy who obviously isn't here is Big Xander Risotto, who is currently over in Italy on secondment with his job. I can't go into too many details, but suffice to say, he has been rowing aimlessly around the canals of Venice, talking up the game of rugby union to people who can't speak English. And I think even to native Italian speakers who listen to Xander talk about union, even then, with that language barrier, I'm pretty sure they know that union's boring. So, this will be a fairly unconventional episode because it's just me and a microphone. I honestly just wanted to see that the equipment still works. It does. It's making a weird buzzing sound and has a fair few flashing lights on it. It must be one of those Pete Evans COVID machines that I'm using by mistake, but everything appears to be working. So, rugby league, I have been just trying to catch myself up on all of the pre-season news, and I came across an interesting article actually a few hours ago. I don't know if you guys have heard about this one yet. Again, I don't know why I'm asking questions down the microphone to you. You're just here to listen. You're not here to participate. This is not an interactive medium. But it's about Jaryd Croker. Now, everyone would know, certainly the thoughts on this show, that Jaryd Croker has not been his best over the last 7 years. And, he had a brief apex, I'd say, in terms of form, but it certainly had left his body some years ago. And I was reading in this article that Jaryd is now embarking upon a really radical therapy to get his career back on track, and he's actually injecting stem cells into his kneecap. There was a few quotes in the article from Jaryd. It said, "I couldn't even walk up the stairs." I don't even think Jaryd needed to furnish us with an example. I mean, we've seen you play, Jaryd. We know movement is not your friend at the moment. It would seem in 2021 you had a similar athleticism to an asthmatic ant. We actually suggested on the podcast that potentially jettisoning your iconic white headgear might give you a competitive edge. Because who knows, maybe that's what's slowing you down. Maybe it's weighted. Maybe there's like just wet cement inside it. And that's why you're so slow and cumbersome. But that's just a theory. So that's what Jaryd's doing, because so there's that kind of really awkward thing going on there between Ricky and Jaryd, because Ricky, he wants to win, but knows that if he has Jaryd in the team, that they can't defend their own goal line. It's a bit like a relationship where no partner knows how to end it down there in Canberra. Ricky clearly knows this guy's a liability. But, he's his captain and he sort of bleeds green, probably drinking too much Mountain Dew, and doesn't want to drop him out of the team. So this seems to be the emergency plan to inject Jaryd's knee with a considerable amount of stem cells, unborn fetuses and human growth hormone, and just see how it reacts. But we do wish you all the best, and we hope 2022 you at least exceed the speed of a horny tortoise. Dylan Napa. I don't know if anyone saw this. He made his debut in Super League. Took someone's head off, I think, in the first 8 minutes, which was pretty out of character for Dylan. If anyone's been tracking his career, it's not his go. It's he's got a wonderful technique where he rarely attacks the head. I remember the first 3 or 4 really high tackles that Dylan Napa did, where people had their faces dented in, like they looked like they were in the same car as Princess Di. That's the kind of damage that Dylan was inflicting on people, and for the first 2 or 3 times, people defended him. In fact, could have been me, because at the time he was playing for the Roosters, so I'm completely one-eyed when it comes to my own team, so I'm sure I did defend him initially. So after the first 2 or 3, everyone's going, he got unlucky, and the guy kind of, dipped into it. Those same excuses where, he was going for the inside shoulder and he just mistimed it. And then I think after about the 4th or 5th time, everyone went, nah, Dylan's fucked. You're a violent man. And you might be doing this on purpose. So anyway, it's good to see he's really changed his spots over there in Super League. We hope the guy lives. who he hit. I think it's at this stage unclear. He's on some kind of respirator. So well done on making a splash, Dylan, in the Super League. Can't say the same for your fellow countryman Mitch Pearce, who was virtually unsighted for the Catlins, I believe, in his first game. I'm only getting that third hand from a couple of people. I couldn't bear to watch Mitch again. He's out of the country. I thought that was my right. I reserve my right not to watch him kick a ball dead in the red zone ever again. I'm not letting it happen. I've had too many hours of therapy to go back on that now. What else have we got here? Rule changes again. I mean, actually, the ones I've heard about, I haven't even gone through them all yet, but the ones I've heard about actually seem fairly logical. Everyone knows everyone was rorting the 6 again rule by lying on them in the first tackle. So I believe they've made it so that it's a just standard penalty if it's within the 40-metre zone of your own line. I believe that's the rule. It's an unreliable source. It's coming from Media Watch Mario, so it's probably erroneous. But that one seems to be completely common sense. But I do worry that there's a suite or a raft of rules that I haven't read about yet that I'm going to hate. And I try not to angry up my blood too early in the piece. I prefer to watch those rule changes go live in front of my eyes and then become irate about it later, which I'm sure I will be. Now, before I go on, something that is a bit of a TVD tradition, if you don't mind. Oh, yeah. That's my first beer for the night. That's how you know getting old. I'm on a Great Northern, mid-strength, because it's a weeknight and I got to get up early and I got to be prepared for the fact that I might be going in the middle of the night to soothe a child when they're waking up and going ballistic. So I'm on the mid-strength. It tastes like beer, but it doesn't have that same effect where I feel like I want to go out and glass someone, which is a shame, because that's the only real reason I drink beer. But it does taste good. Breaking news tonight, I don't know if anyone saw it, the Dragons, who have just a recent history of making really astute decisions on the cusp of the season. They've re-signed Hook for another 2 years. A ball hasn't been kicked. And they've waited until a few weeks from kickoff to go, you know what? Hook's doing well. He must have had a fucking great off-season. He must have knocked the fucking executive's socks off with the way he's whipped them into a frenzy. Because it can't have been based on last season, can it? Like, what do they win, about 7 games? Where's Giannis? I don't know what their win-loss ratio was because, I mean, like most of the rugby league public, I stopped watching Dragons games about halfway through. I'd much prefer to just drown myself in chloroform. Unless that delightful Tariq Sims is playing, which is rare because he's often injured. So that's an interesting one, isn't it? That's a ballsy move. And I'm using the word ballsy quite loosely there because it could just be really fucking dumb. And, you got to go back and even just look at Hook's overall first-grade career. This is not Wayne Bennett or Craig Bellamy or Tim Sheens. This isn't someone with a really impressive win-loss ratio. I mean, he had a stint up there with the Broncos that wasn't great. It was all right. But it was the Broncos who were still a decent team back then. And then, he actually was going all right. He had a bit of a stint out of the game and went all right at Penrith before being knifed by the great Gus Gould in some weird tussle out west that we'll never know the full details of. And then he had another big stint off. And I don't know if anyone knows this, but because I'm a big LinkedIn man, I'm linked to Griffin on LinkedIn. Somehow we're friends. I don't know how that works. But he does these updates. I think he did like corporate motivational speaking, which I think every retired rugby league coach goes into. It's like a default thing. It's like doing community service. You can't not do it, apparently, because they all do it. And, occasionally what a lot of these guys will do is they'll put up a post every 3 or 4 days that's supposed to be stirring and motivational. And sometimes they actually are. Like, I'll get ones from Mark Boris and I go, oof, I got a bit hard over that one. That hit me in a deep place, Mark. By the way, keep buying those premierships for the Tricolours, please. Mark, I've got to say, Anthony Griffin's ones, not so stirring. That was my big red flag as a coach because he had all the time in the world to think about these little posts that he was putting up. No insight. They weren't very catchy. There was nothing poetic about them. They didn't really say much. And when I watched the Dragons play last season, I go, that is classic Hook. They're playing just like that. So, ballsy decision. They've re-signed him. I wonder if he's got something on the executive. I wonder if there's some blackmail going on there where somehow he's worked out that, 3 or 4 of the guys on the board have been bankrolling these Canadian truckie blockades, or, they're somehow linked to, Hillary Clinton QAnon groups or something like that. Because it does seem very peculiar that he's managed to curry favour so early in the season. And it's not as though either they've necessarily attracted this swathe of talent. Everyone's rushing to play under Anthony Griffin. That would not appear to be the case either. A lot of new faces, and that's generous. I think there's 4 or 5 people that have never played league, but they've just pulled them in for the numbers, as you would a park touch football club. They've got Sloan. That guy's amazing. And I believe Corey Norman has finally been assassinated and won't be playing. It was a bloody coup in the end, and he was removed a bit in the same way that Gaddafi was from Cogra / Illawarra. Wollongong, where the fuck their base is. Oh, do you know what I say to you, St George Illawarra? Forget this playing out of Cogra and playing out of Wynn. Just play exactly in the middle. In the same way Sydney and Melbourne chose Canberra, which is a fucking hole that no one would have ever gone to, and they went, here is the middle. We're going to start a civilization here. I want that club to do the same thing. And I don't even know where it is. I could pull out Google Maps. I'm not going to do it, but I'm probably going to suggest it's somewhere around, well, let me think. Let's try and work it out. Probably be Yarrawarra, I'd say. Just start a club there, build a ground. There might even be one there, I don't know. It's probably not a lot out there. It's probably just a bunch of trees. Could be Bundeena, the halfway point. It doesn't really matter. All really matters is that a compromise has been reached. And I think that club will really pull itself together if they do base themselves out of Bundeena. So I watched The Tinder Swindler the other day on Netflix. I don't know if anyone's watched that one. It's about this guy who scams women by pretending to be something he's not. And I remember thinking, isn't that just fucking Tinder? That's just the whole thing, isn't it? I'm so happy that I met my wife just before the advent of the dating apps, because I think I would have been just that dickhead. Not picking up, obviously. No, I was dreadfully unsuccessful with the opposite sex, but just that guy that would just have a picture that was constantly swiped, is it left, the wrong way. And then probably would have developed a complex, would have went out and got some chin implants, probably would have worked out for the first time and at least made my flabby man boobs slightly more taut. And it would have really wrecked my life. I love my man boobs. I'm glad I've got them, and I'm true to myself that I've never been on Tinder. Watch The Tinder Swindler. And the other thing I've been doing is playing Wordle, which has absolutely swept the world. I don't know if anyone's played that, but essentially it's this app word game, which seems really simple, but it's quite fun. But this is my gripe with it, right? They only let you do one puzzle a day. I mean, the app has the capacity to give you more than that, but it chooses not to. Like it's the cock tease of apps. And for that reason, I've dumped Wordle and I've gone with the Russian knockoff, which is a bit annoying in itself because once you solve 5 puzzles in a row, you have to invade the Ukraine, which is, I think, unfair. And for me at the moment in Sydney, logistically a fucking nightmare, so I'm not happy about that. What else is going on? Sorry, I have scrolled a few notes on my arm. Talking points, I guess you could call them. I've got 6, and I'm in trouble because I think the 7th one is a mole. So I haven't got too many left. Dolphins. Yeah, interesting to see how look, that's how good my notes is. It just says Dolphins ? I haven't read about them. I haven't read much. I just know they've chased a bunch of people unsuccessfully, and there's been a lot of memes about them recruiting people who are over the hill. Wayne Bennett appears to be going for players who are his chronological contemporary. People who were born just before the war, which is an interesting tactic to recruit essentially an old age home team. especially in the era of COVID. I mean, one sneeze could wipe out your whole squad. So I don't think it's going to work. But look, the thing about it is, it's pretty simple. If you're a betting man, I'll put this out for everyone that loves a bet. It's Wayne Bennett. He's never unsuccessful. It doesn't matter what project he gets involved with. And this is the thing about Bennett, which is always a bit curious to me, is unlike Bellamy and other coaches who are of a similar ilk, who never get doubted, Wayne Bennett has this weird tendency where people doubt him. Like, I think this is the year he's really lost his marbles. It's like, well, what are you basing that on? His unmitigated success for his entire 38-year career or whatever it's been. He'd very rarely been out of the 8. I mean, I'm going to put it out there. I think the guy knows what he's doing. And relentlessly bringing in his age as if the game has left him. I mean, you've just got to be guided by the facts, don't you? He's one of the most successful coaches of all time. He will make the Dolphins a success. And he'll make, in his tenure, he won't just set it up for future success like, the poor old West Tigers who have put in a 48-year plan under Madge. Madge is hoping the Tigers are sort of successful around the same time we're colonising Mars. So he's got a very long runway to get them into the 8. And I've got to be honest, I don't know if they're going to make it. But I won't drift onto Madge because I know it makes Big T very angry in particular when I when I hammer away at Madge. So because I love you, big fella, I'm going to stop there, and I'm not going to go any further. I mean, I've got plenty more to say. As you know, Souths. How will Souths go this year without Wayne? I think, if you're talking about clubs that are going to go forward and clubs that are going to go backwards, I get the feeling Souths, and this is not just because of my inherent hatred, I promise you, Souths are going to be one of those teams because of the Wayne Bennett factor. It is that alone is going to take them down several notches. Not to mention the fact that there is some talent that is disappearing from that squad as well, namely Mr. Adam Reynolds, who is a major linchpin in that team. So yeah, I still think they're going to be competitive. You'd be a very brave man to say they're going to fall out of the 8. But for me, they're at the bottom end of the 8 this year. And the other team that's been questioned is the Storm. And, people are saying, and they do, it's a broken record, but people say, is there cracks appearing in the facade of this monolith of success? And a quick answer, no. They will be very successful again because Craig Bellamy is there. This will come as no surprise to the vast majority of you, but, he's the reason, really, that club is a success. It's the culture and it's the process and the belief that he instills, not just in the 17 people who take the park, but the whole organisation. And so long as Craig is there running things and poring over every micro detail, the Melbourne Storm will be successful. Again, just a pretty easy bet. So lock them in for the top 8 as well. Well, I've probably rambled long enough. I hope everyone's well. I hope you're all pumped up for another footy season. We'll be back to do a proper preview of the season with Media Watch Mario and hopefully Xander Risotto, if he's, finished boring the socks off Silvio Berlusconi about the problems with rugby union's ruck area. So until next time, just do what Novak Djokovic would do and be really afraid of a fairly benign needle, while at the same time pumping yourself full of electrolytes from dubious sports companies. See you next time.